A recent survey of nearly 500 New Mexico voters found that 4 in 5 believe the amount of influence that large campaign donors have on politicians is either a very serious problem or a somewhat serious problem. For what may be obvious reasons, it's not something you hear about on local television news. In This Week at MIF, producer Floyd Vasquez delves into the issue.
Joining us today is Trip Jennings, Executive Director of New Mexico In Depth, which can be found at nmindepth.com. Vicki Harrison, Executive Director of Common Cause New Mexico, and Joe Monahan, author of the political blog joemonahan.com. Trip, let's start with you. New Mexico In Depth is running a series of stories analyzing campaign spending in New Mexico. Tell us about the millions of dollars being spent on the thousands of ads.
So at this point, this is as of September 26, I think, there were $7 million in TV ads that have been purchased. Most of this, we're talking about, roughly maybe 19,000 ads that have been booked so far. Most of these are through candidate campaigns. There have been a couple of large out-of-state purchases. One of them is by the, it was $340,000 by the Committee for Justice and Fairness, and they plunked that money down in the Attorney General's race for Hector Balderas, the state auditor who's now running as a Democrat to replace Gary King as Attorney General. You know, to put this in perspective, though, you know, the state north of us 2 weeks ago was at $63 million in TV ads. So, you know, that's because they have some very competitive federal, a U.S. Senate race and a very competitive governor's race. Here, we don't have as competitive a Senate race or a governor's race right now, it seems like, according to the polling.
And most of this money is going to television advertising?
This is all, we're tracking campaign TV ad purchases at local stations. So it is all TV ads, yes.
Okay. And Vicki, let's say I'm a successful businessman. I've worked hard and I've accumulated a lot of money and I want to support candidates who I want to support. What's the problem with that?
You know, Floyd, there's not a problem with that as long as everybody is contributing and everybody is being heard. The problem is with the recent court cases that we've had, with past court cases we've had, and rulings that really allow one person's voice to be amplified above everybody else's. And, you know, I get ribbed by the media a lot because I always say the vast, vast majority of our legislators in this state are hardworking, awesome people. And I would say that about the majority of them. But they spend all of their time raising money for campaigns. And, you know, I hear all the time, you know, Vicki, there's some good people that have PACs. Some of our good legislators have PACs. Well, of course they do. They can't just get left in the dust. They have to play the game with the hand they've been dealt. And until we change the system, then they're caught up in this crazy world of raising money instead of talking to constituents about why they should be elected.
Okay. Now, and Joe, I guess money has always been a part of politics, I imagine, but with the Citizens United decision and super PACs, isn't it a different world now?
The mother's milk of politics, huh, Floyd? That's the old saying, and it doesn't change, except as Vicki said, the amount and the intensity of the money is so bigger than it was back in the day. It is a crazy quilt regulatory system over the money. We really have two choices facing us, I believe. Complete public campaign financing or complete transparency of all these donations that would go up immediately on the internet. Somehow we have to find a compromise if we're going to get away from what Vicki referred to as this 24/7 money chase by our elected leaders.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you know, does it still matter that, I mean, the picnics, the handshaking, the door knocking, are these still part of the political process?
They've faded in importance. Look at this governor's race. The irony in the governor's race, since we're talking about money today, is that the lack of money is the story in the New Mexican governor's race in 2014. Gary King, the Democratic hopeful, has very little. He needs public debates with the governor, but she has money and won't give them. And if she goes to a picnic, you can bet he's not going to be there. So that shows you how money plays a very real role in what we, the public, get to see of these candidates.
Now, Trip, what do you see as the problem with having so much money supporting these politicians?
Well, you know, let's take the governor's race, for example. She's booked $2.1 million so far. Gary King is not. He's dark right now. He's not, you know, on TV. What happens is that whoever has the money gets to define the opponent as they want the opponent to be defined. The opponent is not given the chance to actually define themselves for the public. And so that's you know, that's politics 101. That's how the game is played. But when you're talking about this much money, I'm going to go back to something Vicki said. You know, with Citizens United in 2010 and McCutcheon versus FEC, this is another one. Money is just flowing into the system in a way where there are still campaign finance limits at the federal level, but now somebody can give as much as they want to across the system. That's basically correct, right, Vicki? And so they do have a voice.
The aggregate limits are gone at the federal level.
So they're going to have, it's like a megaphone versus some, you know, in a big crowded kind of room versus somebody trying to whisper. I'm not sure that's the appropriate analogy, but in some ways, if we're talking about equal opportunity of being heard, that's a question. I'm not saying I know how to settle it. I'm saying that's the debate right now, is how to settle this stuff.
I think the deeper issue, and I agree with you, Trip, I think the deeper issue is the quid pro quo, if any, from campaign contributions and public policy. We've got the governor on the air now reminding people of Richardson's pay-to-play. We've got the Democrats saying pay-to-play with the Albuquerque Downs lease and contributions. And so we have to know where this money is coming from if we're going to draw any conclusions as to whether there's any hanky-panky. And that's the problem I see, that with these super PACs and Citizens for United, we who have explored this, we can't get at who exactly is giving the money all the time.
That's exactly right, Joe. I mean, that's where the key is. And, you know, that's why Common Cause New Mexico has teamed up with a variety of citizens and leaders across the state to do our New Mexico Pledge campaign, which for, you know, your listeners is newmexicopledge.org. And we're talking about disclosure. Just like Joe mentioned, we have to have full disclosure and transparency, and we've got to have the technology that makes that disclosure available basically to the media, because we know your average citizen, if they're not like me, they're not going to be reading through campaign finance reports. But if we have it easily accessible for the media to digest and then write those stories, produce those stories, and public financing of campaigns. You know, public financing used to be seen as a left versus right issue. And I'm telling you, we've been doing polling and research and focus groups around the country and in New Mexico, and we actually have more support by a few percentage points from Republicans for public financing in this state.
You know, that's very interesting. I was going to ask you about that poll that you did.
Right.
A lot of people they feel this is a serious concern. Talk about what you found.
It was really amazing. And we did a poll with Research and Polling Inc. here in the state at the first of this year. And we asked a variety of questions around money and politics. And the numbers were staggering. 80% of the state thinks that these large donations in politics is a serious problem. 79% of the state thinks that politicians are corrupt. And again, that's not really true. And, you know, so you have, and when you look at the national polling, it also shows 95% of people think there's something wrong with all of this money in politics. And this is across independents, DTS, Democrats, Republicans. It's the same. And people want something to do, which is why we're pushing the pledge. It's going to require disclosure of all this money in campaigns. Look at public financing. Create a state ethics commission. We're one of a handful of states that has no ethics commission. So even if somebody does something wrong, what's going to happen?
You know, this is extraordinary because what Vicki is talking about, because some of these Supreme Court rulings also, some of the assumptions are that there's equal disclosure across the states.
Absolutely.
Not at the federal level, because the federal can set for races, but each state by state. And I can tell you, you know, New Mexico lags in some ways compared to some other states as far as disclosure or transparency. So that's what those of us who have covered and tracked politics, you know, all sorts of these sorts of issues, there are little things like, this sounds like a very small thing, but in New Mexico, you don't have to tell who your employer is. is an occupation. And that's a piece of information that can help people like a reporter kind of make connections.
And that's one of our recommendations that we have put out to the legislature. You're right. And I think it's a really key point that Tripp just mentioned. Even in the Citizens United ruling, which everyone says is horrible, it allows unlimited money. Even within that ruling, there was another 8-to-1 ruling that says, well, of course you'll have disclosure. So even within this 5-to-4, let's let the money float in, there was still 8-to-1 of the Supreme Court that said, well, of course you should at least require disclosure so everybody knows where the money's coming from and where it's going.
Joe, do you think our political elite will go along with this idea for reform?
It's going to be very difficult, but Vicki's trying every year, and I think they make a little progress every year. The bigger issue to me, looking back at it in a historical context, is the deeper disconnect between public opinion and public policy. And by that, I'll give you some examples. Repealing driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants is supported by 77% of the people or whatever. A proposal for a constitutional amendment for early childhood is overwhelmingly supported by New Mexicans. Third grade social promotion is obviously supported. The point being that both sides are locked into their financial bases. The unions give a ton of money to stop immigration reform, perhaps. The Republicans the unions on the Democratic side are locked into fighting certain education reforms. The public wants that constitutional amendment, but we're not getting what the public wants as much anymore, I don't think, on the public opinion polls. I think the money is really speaking louder, Vicki and Tripp, than it used to because of what you've been discussing. And I think those are some concrete examples.
And actually, we're just about out of time, so I just wanted to close where can viewers find more information about your pledge with information about these alternatives?
Absolutely. NewMexicoPledge.org, and you can read the pledge, sign the pledge, and share it with your friends.
And of course, we have nmindepth.com, right?
Yes.
And JoeMonahan.com. Thank you very much.